Hello and welcome to the first review of this year, I think it is, and also a big welcome to Melco, who appear on this channel for the first time, and in the shape of a big box, a box called the N50-S38. This is a music server library, and it costs £1 short of £5,000. So, a high-end piece of kit, to be sure. The delivery heart of the N50 is the 3.48 terabyte SSD hard disk. Now that capacity figure does sound a little bit random, doesn't it? But the choice was apparently made because of the size and for sonic reasons. Now, I like SSDs. They are different to mechanical designs, sure. They rely on different tech. Yes, they're not perfect. This is true. They, like mechanical designs, have their own issues. Even so, SSDs are very much quieter than your mechanical box. They can be very much faster as well. They are compact, rapidly coming down in price. I recently saw a 4 terabyte model from external. This is from Crucial, I think it was, for just under £200, and they provide relatively less vibration. They still vibrate on a micro level, that's true, but the rate is, I would venture, reduced. So, with a bit of luck, that may help in sonic terms. Now, this box has a full width chassis, which is very familiar. It resembles the N1A. In terms of where this particular box sits in the Melco range, well, you're looking at just underneath the N1ZEX and just above the N10. Now, before we get into the granular details in techie terms, I think we need to take a closer look. And welcome to the closer look section for the Melco N50-S38 digital audio library. And well, let's nip round the back first, shall we? And we will see a meaty new trick housing for the USB port, which does rather fill you with confidence, I have to say. That's the socket I used to connect to my DAC. I had a benchmark DAC connected to that one. To the right of that is a USB 3 port to add further music sources, and keeping on going to the right, a USB expansion port, and that expands the N50's storage capacity. There's a USB backup, very useful, plus an Ethernet, well, 2 Ethernet ports. The first one connects to your home network. The one to its right, well, that's for an external network audio player or an AV receiver. Keeping on going, to the right, on its lonesome, is an IEC power port. Nipping to the front now, and we have a push-button power control. There is, next to that, a USB port for music-loaded USB sticks and the like. There's also an output screen for music output information, and you can change the settings and all that malarkey. And to the right of that lot are 4 button controls for the branching settings menu. In use, this settings menu interface is fine as a button-controlled branching menu can be. So, in other words, a little old-fashioned and clunky. The N50 is Roon ready and can be controlled via Twonky and Minim servers, which offer plenty of tagging facilities. The fully featured Songkong is also supported. So that is your techie stuff. How does this thing sound? That's the next question. Hey, well, let's nip over to the sound quality tests and we will find out. and welcome to the sound quality tests for the Melco N50-S38 digital audio library. And I began with my MacBook laptop as a Wi-Fi sound source, loaded up my twonky server. Then I played Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff at 24-bit 96K over my home network and through the Melco, which played first time and without any issues. Sound was excellent for a Wi-Fi source, which means there were compromises because of that Wi-Fi source. So it didn't exactly have an expansive presentation. Space was a little constricted. The instrumental separation wasn't really noticeable at all. And in dynamic terms, it sounded a bit dull. Saying that, I am being super critical here, but not of the Melco. The Melco performed very well. This is a Wi-Fi thing, that sense of restriction. Totally Wi-Fi. On a more general level, sound was perfectly acceptable. If you take Wi-Fi as is, the mids were not bright, which is a good thing. The bass was not woolly, again, good. Treble wasn't pinched. So you had disciplined frequencies, another thumbs up. And actually for Wi-Fi play, well, I've heard a lot worse, let me tell you. So as a broadcast system in tech terms, Wi-Fi delivery worked like a dream. So how about wired play and sourcing music from the SSD inside the Melco itself? The wired connection, as opposed to the earlier wonky, twonky Wi-Fi server, does help tremendously to lower high-frequency noise. So I played the same Marley track via the internal Melco SSD and immediately appreciated the excellent instrumental separation from the Melco on this wired connection. And that was the standout feature of the N50, I felt. The headline, you might say. So take the harmonies, for example. Via Wi-Fi, harmonies just sounded like a sonic blob, just like a single entity. Via the wired connection, via the Melco itself, harmonies sounded what they are, a group of human voices. The rhythm guitar sounds, the organ and the percussion all sat within their own space with plenty of air sitting around each. That added richness to the soundstage. Bass was good, offering a reliable foundation to the track, while the vocal was focused and provided enough clarity around the delivery so that lyrics were easy to follow. Now basically that is the review of the Melco. But I want to offer a few final thoughts, and I will bring up a particular point during those final thoughts that you might want to consider. I will also look at some pros and cons, and I'll give you a rating. Now, look, I have this question. I have this question to ask you about the Melco, and it's this. What is the point? What's the point of this thing? After all, you've got an SSD hard disk full of music. It's connected to an interface. The whole thing is wrapped in a metal box. And that's it. You could grab a laptop, a separate SSD drive, and you could basically run the same thing, couldn't you? And if you want to be all, I don't know, hairy-fairy audiophile about it, like I probably would be, and you worry about isolation like I do, then you could even fit and mount the SSD drive on a pair of isolation feet, for example. And even then, you would still pay far less than the asking price of this expensive Melco. 5K, let's not forget. So I did just that. I rigged up that very system. A laptop, a MacBook in my case, an external SSD drive, and I sat the drive on a pair of Stack Audio over EQ feet. And I said to Bob, I said, one more time if you please. And so he did, which was nice of him. Next question then, how did the laptop sound in comparison to the Melco? Well, from the laptop's perspective, it was like listening to a very good portable FM radio, a top quality radio, and then comparing it to a quality hi-fi system. The radio sounded very nice, but it just didn't compare. That was the laptop system versus the Melco. The soundstage, to give you an example, the soundstage from the Melco was twice as broad as the laptop system. The noise from the Melco was way lower than the laptop system. The mid-range insight from the Melco was superb. It wasn't on the laptop, I have to say. Those backing harmonies I mentioned earlier on, well, via the laptop, they sounded like a piece of sonic blue tack. They sounded fine. You could hear what they were singing. But the Melco gave each voice space and added personality to each and every one. So, for example, in this little harmony section, one of the voices you could hear stopping just slightly before the rest. And there was another voice which had a little bit of extra vibrato, detail like that. There was an organ mooching around in the background on this track, and on the laptop system, the guy kind of phones in his performance. It's entirely competent via the laptop. It works fine. It does the job. But the Melco, it added finesse. You can hear the organ softening at times, as if the keys are not being pressed as hard. There's more reverb, so the organ floats further down the line of the song. And the variation in texture of the organ is much higher than the laptop system. This happens all over the place on this one song. So yes, the laptop system is good. And for many people, it will be the solution, the answer. For many people, the laptop system will be all they will need. But if you have the budget, of course, and if you want to get closer to the original performance and hear nuance and detail and delicacy, if you want to step closer to the reality of the original performance, that is, if you care, then grab the Melco. Pros and cons. And in the Pro section, we have, well, lots of server options, wired, wireless, and a variety of systems to connect to, which is a good thing. And speaking of connections, the actual physical connectivity is pretty good. There are lots of wired options here. Low noise, well, that's a big deal in terms of getting information from the Melco to your ears. Expansive soundstage, well, it really sounded like the Melco was putting on a performance here. Also, mid-range detail. There was plenty of detail. Your ears were constantly scanning the soundstage, discovering little detailed delights. In the bad section, well, I could grumble about that screen interface, which I think even now is rather stodgy. It's fine though, it doesn't get in the way too much, but you know, eh. However, that does not put too much of a dampener on things, and I still want to give the Melco N50-S38 an award-winning rating of 8 out of 10. That, my friends, is a groovy. Congratulations to Melco. And thank you very much for staying to the end of this video. And before you go, can you down there click on the like and subscribe buttons, please? It helps this channel enormously. Also, further down in the description, there are other links to my Patreon page, which holds the exclusive hi-fi news, etc. videos. You should have seen examples of the same over the past few weeks, just to give you an idea what goes on over in Patreon. That's an exclusive Patreon thing, so if you want to see more, get over there, have a little mooch. There's lots of other things there too, of course. There's a link to my website, which is still new, still shiny, has had a complete revamp, so check that out. Also, what else we got? A Facebook group, which you're welcome to join, and lots of other stuff too. Check them out, have a little scan. Anyway, I'll be back on Friday with a new Music Alerts video. As I say, I'll be able to tell you what musical goodies I received through the post this week. Check that out on a Friday. Hope to have your company, and until then folks, bye bye for now.